So, Shalom and Shalom.
You're not playing with your friend?
Yeah.
What?
Well, we did. Salakia. I want to start off by giving our praise. I'm going to Yahweh, Bashim Yoshai, Bashim Kakodash. You can watch a video, okay? Thanks for half-ass closing the door. Shalom, Yashua. Before I begin, I want to start off by giving our praise. I'm going to Yahweh, Bashim Yoshai, Bashim Kakodash. Double honor to the house and apostle, great milestone, peace and salutation unto the elect. Today's lesson is going to be on Bel and the Dragon. Just going to go through the, pretty much, the message of the book, of the story, and then I'll get a couple precepts, and that's going to be the video. So it says Bel and the Dragon, chapter 1, and it says, verse 1, and King Astyages was gathered to his fathers, and Cyrus and Persia received his kingdom, and Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends. Now the Babylonian had an idol called Bel, and there were spent upon him every day 12 great measures of fine flour, and 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine. And the king worshipped it, and went daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own power, and the king said unto him, Why does not thou worship Bel? So the Babylonians had a vain power, a vain god named Bel, right? And Daniel worshipped his own power, his the true living power, Yahweh Shmi Ashai. In verse 5 it says, Who answered and said, Because I may not worship idols made with hands, but the living power, who hath created the heaven and the earth, and hath sovereignty. Dude, I butchered that Slakia so bad. Over all flesh. Slakia, why did I butcher? I butchered that so bad. Slakia. Anyways, who was he talking about? He's talking about Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And it says right here, Exodus 3:14, and Yahweh said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am sent me unto you. So right, the living power. And another piece that comes to mind is how does it go? Jeremiah 10:10. But the Lord Yahweh Shai is a true power. He is a living power, and an everlasting king. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide his indignation, which is righteous anger. So right, you know, and pretty much the rest of the story is goes. Well, actually, I'll read 6. Then said the king unto him, Thinkest thou that Bel is thou not that Bel is a living power? Seest thou not how much he eateth and drinketh every day? Then Daniel smiled and said, O king, be not deceived, for this is but clay within and brass without, and did never eat or drink anything. So they had a temple for Bel, for Bel, for Bel, Salakia, not Baal. And pretty much they had a temple, and what they would do is they would go to they would go to his to the temple and put him food and water. And Daniel was saying how their idol is fake. It's a false god. And he was righteous to say that. He was true to say that, you know. And the king and Daniel made a bet, as said here in verse 8. So the king was wroth and called for his priests and said unto them, If ye tell me not this is that devoureth these expenses, ye shall die. But if you can certify me that Bel devoureth them, then Daniel shall die, for he hath spoken blasphemy against Bel. And Daniel said unto the king, Let it be according to thy word. Right? So, you know, they made a bet, pretty much saying that Bel, if Bel, they were going to place food again, and if Bel were to eat the food, then Daniel would die. But if Bel were not to eat the food, and Daniel disproved them, then the priest would die. And Daniel agreed to the bet. And now what had happened was, before, where is it at? Daniel had put powder, or what was, Salaki, I forget what it's called. Where is it at? And the priests were pretty much they weren't worried about the bet because of what they knew that was gonna happen. They knew that they had people who were gonna eat the food for them. But Daniel, as it says in verse 14, so when they were gone forth, the king says, Meet us before Bel. Now Daniel had commanded his servants to bring ashes, and though they strewed throughout all the temple, in the presence of the king alone, then went they out and shut the door and sealed it with the king's sign, and so departed. So right, Daniel told his servants to sprinkle ashes all over the floor. And this is very important later on in the story, in this thing. As it says, right here in 19, because the king saw that the food was eaten. But look what Daniel says in verse 19. Then laughed Daniel and held the king that he should not go in, and said, Behold now the payment, and mark well those footsteps are these. And the king said, I see the footsteps of men, women, and children. And the king was angry. So right, the king knew the scandal that the men, children, and the priests pretty much were doing. They were eating the food, you know, and were making it seem as if Bel was eating it, you know, but that wasn't the case. And Daniel was wise enough to put ashes all over the floor, right? And it says in verse 25 or verse 23, Salakia. And in the same place was there a great dragon which they of Babylon worshipped. And the king said unto Daniel, Wilt thou also say, This is brass? Lo, he liveth, he eateth and drinketh. Thou cannot say that he is no living power. Therefore worship him. Then Daniel said unto the king, I will worship the Lord my power, for he is the living power. And right, this is this is a testimony to Daniel's faith, you know. And right here in verse 27, it says, Then Daniel took pitch, fat, and hair, and did where's that? And did seethe them together, and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth, until the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, Lo, these are the powers you worship. So Daniel pretty much disproved both the powers that we're serving. And the people of Babylon, being wicked, said in verse 29, So they came to the king and said, Deliver us Daniel, or else we will destroy thee in thy house. And they did. The king delivered him Daniel because the king didn't want, the people of Babylon to destroy his house. And this is where Daniel in the lion's den takes place. Right here, look. This is verse 31. Who cast him into the lion's den where he was 6 days. And now here is the beautiful part of this whole story, right? Which the whole story is beautiful, but right here, look, verse 33. Now there was an Inri, a prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had broken bread in a bunel, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, Go, carry the dinner that thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who was in the lion's den. And Habakkuk said, Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown, and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemency of the spirit, set him in Babylon over the den. And Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which Yahweh hath sent thee. And Daniel said, Thou hast remembered me, O power? Neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. So right, that's where this that's where Ecclesiasticus 2 and 10 takes place. Look at the generations of old, and see, did any trust in the Lord and was confounded, or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken, or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? So right, because of Daniel's faith towards the Lord, he was able to survive, and he was able to to survive the lions den, and even ate. And after the 6 days, they looked down thinking that, Daniel would be dead already, and he was alive because he trusted in the Lord. Or 7 days slack, yeah. And verse 41, Then cried the king with a loud voice, saying, Great art thou, O Lord, power of Daniel, and there is none other besides thee. And he drew him out and cast those that were the cause of his destruction into the den, and they were devoured in a moment before his face. So right, though, the Babylonians, they were killed immediately because they didn't trust in the Lord. So this whole story is a testimony of Daniel's faith and why we should have faith in the Lord. But with that, I hope you was edifying. I want to give all praise and honor to help us. Shalom.